Hey there, everybody. Sandy and Kim, how are you guys?
Hello, Natalie. We well and yourself?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm a little bit late, but I had difficulty with the link that was provided, but all good. We're in the house. Are you guys excited for tonight's topic?
Sorry?
I'm asking, are you guys excited for tonight's topic?
Yes, I missed last week, so I'm assuming it's chapter 7 or 8 or 7. Is that
7,
correct?
yes. Yes. Is that Sandy speaking?
It is, yes.
Are you well?
I am, thank you, Natalie. Sorry, I missed last week.
Sorry?
I'm sorry I missed last week.
Oh, no worries. But the recording is always there if you want to go back to it.
Oh, thank you. I forgot about that. Yes, great.
Yes. So, ladies, if you could please just type your student number in the chat box. That would be appreciated. Then we've taken care of admin details. And then I am going to share my screen with you. Sorry, this is Adele. Adele, hi. Hi, are you online? Yes, thank you, I am. Okay. Okay, thanks, bye-bye. Sorry about that. Ladies, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. So the topic of tonight is around cognition. And specifically 2 areas. The one is around problem solving, and the other one is decision making. So what are those thinking processes that are involved in problem solving, and how does that lead to decisions that are the best decisions that you can make with the information available to you? But then there are also some errors that creep in as you go through the process of problem solving. And they are called heuristics. So we're going to look at a couple of heuristics and how that actually impedes your decision making. So I'm very excited about the topic tonight. I think it's a good, easy, accessible topic that we're going to talk to. There's not a lot of very highfalutin technical terms. So, and we are all adults in this session, and I think you can really relate to some of these processes, which we go through at a very I don't want to say unconscious level, but maybe it is unconscious because you're not even aware sometimes of the process that you use to problem solve. You just presented with a problem, you tackle the problem, you think about it, and you decide on a solution, and that's going to be your course of action. But tonight, because we are people practitioners, it's important that we understand the process of problem solving and how people derive to a decision in order to really evaluate whether those decisions were good decisions or whether they were poor decisions. And then it refers back again to the process that you use, the process that you adopt to go into problem solving. So that is the session that we're going to have tonight. Now, cognitive psychology as a branch of psychology really uses the analogy of a computer to explain how people constantly collect, process, store, and recall information in order to make decisions. Now, just think of yourself. On a daily basis, we are bombarded with stimuli from the environment. We take all of that in through our senses, and then we try and make meaning out of those in order to make decisions. Shall I go left or shall I go right? So that is the analogy that is used. And I think we already established this in the previous chapters that we did, in that people are unique. And each person also is blessed with unique cognitive abilities. There are no two people who are the same. And why is that? Because we were socialized differently. We had different upbringings. We were exposed to a different system of education, potentially, and that all integrates and make up those unique cognitive abilities that we have. These differences become important in employment, selection, and psychometrics when we have to fit between the cognitive requirements of a job and the cognitive ability of an individual. So we normally have a job spec, we have an ad, we need to attract the right people to the job, but once you've attracted them, you need to assess them, whether they do have the necessary cognitive ability to operate at the level of which the job is that you've advertised. So it is important to understand how cognition works. And when we talk about cognition, we really talk about the ability to think, the ability to solve problems, the ability to take initiative, because those are important characteristics of the modern day employee. If you're not able to critically think on your feet sometimes, so under pressure, and if that thinking doesn't allow you to effectively solve problems, then you're not going to be a high-performing individual within a job. And the aim of studying cognition is to develop an understanding and appreciation of the broad capabilities of the mind to think productively, to problem solve, to make decisions, and to act creatively by using language and developing intelligence from that. So there's a couple of terms that we are going to deal with. And the first one is concept formation. So what is concept formation? And please, you can interrupt at any point if you would like to make a comment, a contribution, or maybe to ask a question. So concept formation says that a person forms mental concepts by abstracting similar or general features of objects, people, or events, and we categorize them. So that is how we know that these are people that I can get along with, these are people that I can't get along with. So we take these mental concepts and we try and find similarities in our environment, be that objects, people, or events. And then we characterize them. We don't even know we are doing this, but we do, because sometimes our behavior towards these things are quite telling in terms of how we've characterized these things. So a concept is therefore an abstract idea or a mental category by which similarities are grouped. So things that are similar to the individual looking at it will be grouped together, and you will then have these groupings of things going on. And that is what concept formation is. So if you have a person and the person is a member of a group, develops a cognitive evaluated representation of him or herself. So that's how self-identity happens. You normally find people that are similar to yourself, and being a member of that group also sometimes make it more clear to yourself in terms of who you are, because you take that in accordance to the attributes of the membership within that group. So say, for instance, I am a scrapbooker. In my going through life, I'm always looking to find people that I can group as also belonging or interest within the realm of scrapbooking. And you then later find ways, to attribute some things. And everybody in that group, so all scrapbookers is like X. Such concepts are not formed from a set of common features, but are built around a representative sample or prototype. And I think that makes sense. The prototype indicates what is typical about a specific category, while the schemas indicate what is essential about a specific category. And what is a schema again? We've already come across this term. It is a mental structure that can be used to organize information. Schemas are plans or procedures for classifying people, events, or objects. That is the issue around concept formation. You form mental concepts by abstracting similar or general features of objects, people, or events, and you categorize them. What is rational problem solving? Problem solving, and I know we all do problem solving on a daily basis. Shall I have tea or coffee? That's a problem solving. Shall I go to the shops at 2 o'clock or shall I go at 9 o'clock when there's fewer people in the shops? So you take all these data that you collect and all these impulses and stimuli that you know about the environment, and you use that to effectively problem solve and then make a decision that is going to be the most opportune for you. The most difficult part, however, of problem solving is normally stating what the problem is. Now, some of you might have already submitted assignments for your coursework, right? And sometimes you need to state the problem. What is the problem that you are going to address within this paper that you are writing? And if you're not able to state that problem sufficiently from all angles, you're going to find it very difficult to write a paper if the problem itself is not clarified and clear. Because when the problem is not clearly stated, it hinders the finding of a suitable solution. Many times people have dialogue, people have a discourse about something, and 5 minutes into the discussion, somebody might ask the question, guys, what actually is the problem that we're trying to address here? Because sometimes people can get lost in their own talk. And they talk and talk and talk and forgetting actually what is the thing that I need to address. So stating the problem is a very important part in successful problem solving. Once the problem has been clarified, the solution might follow more easily. Rational problem solving involves solving a problem in a systematic manner by first clarifying and understanding the problem, setting objectives for solving the problem, identifying alternatives, and then analyzing the alternatives, selecting the best alternatives, implementing them, and then reflecting back on both the decision-making process and the outcome of the decision. Now, have you ever thought of that this is actually the process that you go through on a daily as you are presented with problems? What I want to show, however, with rational problem solving is because in modern day world, everything happens at high speed, it actually impedes successful outcomes in terms of problem solving, because we simply don't take the time to go through a process that has the ability to give us the best outcome at the end of the day. Why? Because we are rushed. We are rushed. We don't spend enough time in thinking about something, and once a solution appears in the mind, you grab it and you run with it, but it might not actually be the best solution that you've come up with because you simply didn't take the time to think about it. And I think for line managers in the workplace, there is a book that is called Time to Think. Is very important because you're on the hamster wheel daily from 8 o'clock in the morning when you come into the office until you leave at 6 o'clock at night, and the time to think has been neglected, and that is going to lead to some serious problems down the line in the quality of your decision making. So let's look at some problem-solving strategies. The first one is trial and error strategies, and I think we are all familiar with this approach. These are random, haphazard, and relatively time-consuming searches for solutions. Problem solvers use trial and error methods when the solutions are not readily apparent. So say for instance, you need to hit a nail into a piece of wood and you know, I actually need a hammer for this, but I don't have a hammer. But there is a stone lying around, or there is a scissors lying around. So trial and error, you pick up the scissors, no, this doesn't work. What next? Pick up the stone, see if that's gonna work. What next? That is what is meant by trial and error strategies. And you can see that also behind it is really the speed to get things done. Algorithms is another problem-solving strategy. And I think if you are on social media, you understand everything about algorithms. These are more systematic than trial and error strategies. An algorithm will produce a solution to a problem sooner or later. So an algorithm will look at where do you click online, and therefore it will bring more of the same of where you click into your feed, because it looks at that as a need, and they want to supply in your need by giving you all these options within your feed. Very dangerous. Another problem-solving strategy is heuristics. Heuristics are previously used solutions which are now used as shortcut, best guess solutions to problems. Can you see how this is a problem? Heuristics are based on knowledge and past experience of solving problems. People use heuristics when they feel under pressure to find a quick solution, or simply because heuristics are available and have proven to be useful in the past. It saves time as well as cognitive effort. Heuristics, unlike algorithms, do not guarantee a solution, but they do make a solution very likely. And you don't want a likely solution. You want the best solution to the problem to get a permanent fix. But with heuristics, you think, oh, I had a similar problem in the past, and this is how I dealt with that problem in the past. So let me apply that same strategy now. Analogy, where you use a solution to an earlier problem to help solve a new one. So what are some of the barriers to problem solving? Your mental set implies using a fixed way of thinking about or approaching a situation without considering the uniqueness of the situation. Because there's one thing that I can promise you in the world of human resources or human capital management, that you will never be presented with the same problem twice upon a time. Every time there is a situation that needs to be addressed, it is going to be a unique problem. It might have shades of what you've dealt with before, but it would have very unique characteristics as part of it. And why is that? Because we said that people are unique. So no one problem is going to be the same. The foundation might be similar, but there are very unique elements in there that needs to be considered. So what you applied to Sunny yesterday, you can't necessarily apply to Yanni today, because there's just something in Yanni's scenario that sticks out different from Sunny's. Functional fixedness involves focusing on the main meaning of an object, not seeing that it can be used effectively in other ways. So those are some of the barriers in terms of problem solving. Decision making. Let's look at heuristics and cognitive control. Decision-making requires making a choice between alternatives, with the likelihood of taking a risk in the face of uncertain events. That's a very good description of what decision-making is. Now, to reduce this risk, people often make use of heuristics as they know that these are decisions that have previously given desirable results. But as I said earlier, it doesn't mean that it's going to have the same effect on the situation in front of you now. So what is a heuristic? We said it is a mental shortcut. So it is an error that allows people to solve problems and make judgments quickly and efficiently. Well, efficient refers to quick, but it doesn't refer to an outcome that is solid. There are 3 heuristics that can influence decision making, and we will quickly look at each of those in a little bit of detail. So let's look at the first one there. Anchoring adjustments. This involves making an estimate, starting off by guessing a first approximation, an anchor, and then making adjustments to that on the basis of additional information. And can I ask you ladies, let me just go back to here. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
It does so far, Natalie. Thank you.
Okay. So it is really a problem, you know, when you start off with an initial idea and adjust your beliefs based off of the starting point. Because anchoring and adjustment has been proven to produce error results, especially when the initial anchor deviates from the true value. The next one is availability is used when one estimates frequency or probability in terms of how easy it is to think of something. So what comes to mind? What comes to mind first is what's being used because it's available. Again, it might not be the best solution. Representativeness is based on how much one event resembles another event. When one uses the representative heuristic, one decides whether the event or situation one is judging matches the appropriate prototype. What is a prototype? It is a likeness. So I've had this before. I was in a situation like this before. What did I do then? Okay, that does represent what I am faced with now. So let me go with that. So typical errors which result from the use of heuristics include the following. An over-reliance on the anchor occurs when people typically rely too heavily on the anchor and their adjustments are too small. Overestimating the improbability is a tendency to exaggerate the possibilities of an event that is not likely to occur. So you miss the boat completely. Confirmation bias involves seeking support from those who already share one's views and information that might question one's decision is avoided. Confirmation bias, it's an interesting one because you try and look for solutions from people that kind of also think like you. So you're asking people a question and you actually want them to confirm what you've already thought about. So you're looking for confirmation. You're not necessarily looking here for a challenge. No, that can't work. Why don't you think of it this way? Have you tried this approach? You are deaf to those things because you only listen to the voice that confirms what you are already thinking. Framing involves approaching a problem by putting it in a particular context rather than viewing it from various points of view. So the way you frame something is in such a way that you almost predict a response back. Because if you frame something, if you say something in its broader sense, you've given all the information, but in framing, you actually give the information because you already have an outcome that you want to receive back. Escalation and commitment refers to holding on to a bad decision even as the evidence of failure mounts. This might explain why people stay in unsatisfactory relationships or work situations. I've heard this a lot. Escalation of commitment. People are unhappy in a marriage, but they stay because of whatever reason. People are unhappy in their jobs, but they stay in their jobs and have been in that job for 20 years already. Why? Cognitive control in decision making. Do we have control in decision making? Of course we have control. The first one there is volition. On my own volition, I have done the following. Volition is the use of willpower. So volition can be used to control escalation of commitment, as well as other aspects influencing decision making. Volition implies integrated information processing and action control. So I'm taking all the information in, I'm processing all of this, but I'm also controlling the action that I'm going to come up with. A person will, for example, set a goal and constantly monitor which actions deliver the best results in bringing the person closer to attaining the goals. 3 constraining factors deplete mental resources and limit cognitive control and performance when economic decisions are made. In terms of scarcity, when an item is scarce, attention is focused on this item, with the result that other issues are ignored and stress anxiety increases, leading to impulsive and poor decision making. So the example here is money, so if money is scarce, people, and this is the current situation that we are living in due to COVID, money is tight, and people's attention is so fully focused on money and how to get more money, and the fact that they won't be able to make their ends meet at the end of the month. It does create an enormous stress anxiety response, which unfortunately ultimately also leads to very poor decision making. Because as a means of trying to cope with the scarcity that's going on, you might actually be wasting money in your attempts to cope through things like shopping while you don't actually have money, drinking when you actually don't have food, actually. So that is the issue around scarcity and how it actually hinders decision making. Temptation. Cognitive control is important in resisting temptation. Ongoing demands depletes cognitive control, leading to limited willpower and impulsive decision making. Difficult trade-offs. Poor people cannot afford everything they need and have to choose between items with more deliberation, which also depletes cognitive resources and results in impulsive decision making. So I don't have money for food this month, and I'm going to go to a loan shark to go get some money for food because there's no food. Now, some might say, but what other options are there? And that is something that needs to be explored if you are in that situation. But the difficult trade-offs does happen when you are under pressure and you don't see a way out. Creativity and innovation. Is it one and the same thing? Is the one dependent on the other? Can you have creativity with no innovation? Can you have innovation with no creativity? Creativity is generally defined as the ability to produce work that is novel. So it is original, it is unusual, and unexpected. So it is novel, it is appropriate, it can be used and adapted to task constraints. That is creativity's definition. Innovation refers to the generation and implementation of new ideas. So while creativity might be the process of coming up with lots and lots of new and fresh ideas, innovation is when you take those new, fresh ideas and you actually implement them. Some researchers maintain that all humans are capable of creativity, which can be learned and is studied.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Sorry, it's my echo. Apologies for that. I didn't even speak to her. Some researchers maintain that all humans are capable of creativity, which can be learned and is studied in terms of solving problems that require creativity. So people might look at creativity and think of it in a narrow sense, like you are able to draw or you're able to paint or that type of creativity. But here in psychology, we talk about that and creative thinking, solution-driven thinking as well. Others maintain that it is a rare quality involving unique characteristics of particular individuals. There are also different views on the relation between creativity and intelligence. Creativity is associated with higher intelligence, but intelligence is not sufficient for creativity. And here I would like to have your views, please. What comes to mind when you read these statements? Is creativity a rare quality? Do you have to have some unique characteristics to be able to be creative?
I must say, I was quite disappointed when I saw that, when I was reading through it, because I just thought, oh, it's almost like they give the impression that it's quite a unique quality to have.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that anyone can be creative.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, I was like, I don't know if I agree with that. But I had that sense of disappointment because I think, because I'm not a naturally creative or artistic person, but I love creativity, being creative. And I think, well, does that mean that I will never be successful at it, for example?
Yeah. Absolutely good input.
Yeah. So what do you think that is true? Just because I was quite taken by that statement, actually.
I don't think intelligence is a requirement for creativity. You get people who are on the scale of learning disabilities, but are very creative. Then creativity is expressed in many different ways. I'm creative because I'm a scrapbooker. My friend Mariana is creative because she's got the most incredible garden. So creativity comes in different forms. But because we're talking about cognition today, I think with cognition and creativity, it does want to bring your thinking ability into the equation. And that's the only reason why they make that kind of distinction, because you need a sense of intellect to be able, at a cognitive level, navigate impulses, navigate stimuli out of the environment in order to do effective problem solving and to make good, solid decisions that moves you forward. So I think I was also uncomfortable when I saw that. In general life, I agree with you, but I think as students studying cognition in psychology that has to do with problem solving and decision making, that would hold true.
Oh, okay. I get it. I get what you're saying. So it's based on how creative you can be within your problem solving abilities.
Correct.
And okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Correct.
Thank you.
So one measure of creativity developed by Guilford is based on the distinction between convergent and divergent thinking. This made me think of those books my daughter read at some point a few years ago, Divergence, and I can't remember what the other titles were. But convergent thinking applies existing knowledge and rules of logic to narrowing the range of potential solutions and focusing on a single correct answer. Although such thinking is productive in many situations, it does not appear to foster true creativity. Divergent thinking moves outward from conventional knowledge into unexplored paths and unconventional solutions. A creative person using divergent thinking processes information in diverse ways, finding a new solution or a variety of solutions. So I think if you need to comment between these two, you're definitely leading towards the divergent thinking. So I'm not just thinking in patterns of things that are familiar to me, things that I have come across previously in my life, work life, whatever the situation is. But I'm confronted with an issue. And this is also the kind of out of the box thinking, if you like. So I'm not thinking in conventional ways. I'm not using conventional knowledge. I'm really going over and above what is conventional and thinking blue sky. What are the characteristics of creative individuals? There are many differences between creative and less creative individuals. And the book actually also refers to uncreative individuals. I actually took that out because it's not PC for me. I think there's creative and there's less creative individuals. I don't think we have uncreative individuals. Creativity occurs on a cognitive continuum from primary processing to secondary processing. What is primary processing? Primary processes occur in normal states, such as dreaming or musing about something, and they involve concrete images and associations that facilitate new combinations of ideas. So this is where you are seriously just daydreaming and This is where you are daydreaming and you're just letting your mind go. Secondary processes are abstract and logical and occurs in conscious wakeful states. Abstract and logical and occurs in conscious wakeful states. So not a daydream. You're very aware. Creative people use both processes alternatively, interchangeably. They can access their primary thought processes and can remember their dreams, which they put together by fantasy. So I think a good combination of both can give you a good result at the end of the day. So you do find that creative souls do have an imagination, which I would associate with primary processes. So that imagination often leads to very creative solutions. Whereas your secondary processes, it's more logical. And a good combination of the two is probably the sweet spot. Here we have the uncreative people again. Uncreative people seem to get stuck on the more secondary processes, part of the continuum, and cannot think of creative ideas. Let me just look at these three. Right, creative people can pay attention to more things at the same time than uncreative people who have a more narrow focus on attention. And maybe that's true. My question there would be, does creative people also get things done? Yes, we know they can think creatively and they can think of more than one topic at a time. But does that actually lead to a concrete quality outcome at the end of the day? Creative and uncreative individuals both think in terms of hierarchies and lateral associations, but the creative person is better at making lateral associations. The creative person is more capable of thinking broadly, making lateral associations between remote things. Now that is quite a skill. And this is also something that we test for in psychometrics, you know, that thinking ability, the ability to think creatively out of the box, to create solutions that have not existed before, but are new and fresh and exciting, new ways of doing things. Creative and uncreative individuals show differences in physiological reactions whilst in the process of being creative. A lower cortical arousal shown by creative people could be related to their broader lateral thinking, whilst less creative people try too hard when they have to tell a story to the extent that they become tense, which prevents them from thinking of original ideas. Creative people seem to have right hemisphere dominance. Oh, that's what I wanted to say earlier when I got stuck here by these three. because it also refers to, again, whether you have right-brained people or left-brained people, because we know the right side of the brain leads to more creativity, more dreaming, more blue sky things, whereas the left side of the brain is methodical, it's numbers driven, it's logical, etc. Yeah, so creative people seem to have right hemisphere dominance, which is associated with imagination, intuition, and visualization. Left hemisphere dominance was shown in scientists and mathematicians whose work requires left hemisphere functions, such as logical and analytical thinking. So if I throw a few professions at you, tell me if this is left hemisphere or right hemisphere. The first one is accountant.
Left.
HR practitioner.
Left.
Copywriter.
Left.
I would say more towards the right. Because copywriting in terms of advertising, for instance.
Oh, okay. Now I was thinking about data.
No. Data analyst. Definitely.
Yeah. Left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
As stated before.
Natalie, can I just ask you a question? Does this imply that you're born creative or with a dominance on one side or the other?
You probably have a preference in terms of which side of the brain you feel comfortable in. You
so
have
this
a
is the whole
preference.
nature versus nurture, isn't it?
A little bit of that, because I want to explain it in this way. When you have, let's take it in the workplace, you have a group of accountants, you're taking them on a team building. The team building is that they have to paint T-shirts. Are they going to be comfortable in that situation?
No.
Probably not, right? You take a group of HR people who traditionally don't like numbers. Yes, we can do data analysis and very fundamental, rudimentary statistical analysis, but they're not really into the numbers game unless you work in the reward space, where you work with remuneration and share allocations and those kinds of things. Now, if you take them and you go on a team building and you ask them as an icebreaker, they have to do and calculate a standard deviation of X, Y, Z, etc. Are they going to be comfortable?
No.
Probably not. So I think people, when they choose careers in which they feel they have dominance in. So left hemisphere dominance, those would be the accountants, even the lawyers, and those very structured, very black and white, whereas your HR professionals, it's 50 shades of gray. And you have to creatively navigate 50 shades of gray on a daily basis. Marketing people, exactly the same. People that work in risk management, which dominance do they have, do you think?
Left.
Definitely left. So I think you have a preference for which part of your brain you want to access, and that is how you make career choices out of that. Can you, however, if you are right-brained, can you access left brain? Of course. but with effort. It won't come naturally to you. Similarly, if you are left hemisphere dominance, putting you in a situation where you have to go off facts and figures and actuals, you know, into something that is a little bit open-ended. Yes, you can, but you will be uncomfortable. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, but just also on the when you're born, do you think it's a genetic thing that some are genetically just more creative than others, or do you think it's your environment that you brought up in that makes you more creative? Or less creative, or more, you know, the other side. So one of them makes you mad. Perhaps if you're born and your parents are both accountants, do you think that will naturally make you more left brain dominant? Or is it a genetic thing?
It is more environment. In one of the chapters, I don't know, I think it was probably in IOP1501, there was research done, and this behaviorist said, give me a group of children and I will take them and put them in an environment and I will create a group of accountants. So what does that say? That says that environmental stimulus gives you accountants at the end of the day, which is a very important philosophy to go by. So I would like to say it is a combination of both. But I have a stepson, for instance, that is doing a PhD at the moment in astrophysics. There is no astrophysicist in the family on either side. So he is strong in mathematics. Was he an A student in grade 12 in mathematics? No. But he was put in a university environment. He absolutely loved his mathematics professor. And in the environment, he thrived and is now an astrophysicist. Nothing in his upbringing.
So interesting. I find it fascinating, that subject. Completely fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure. So let's look at the creative process. The creative process is characterized by about 4 steps. The first one is preparation. This involves thinking about or learning about the mental elements thought to be relevant to the problem, thus doing initial conscious work on the problem or task. It also includes considering various approaches to addressing the problem, which at first might seem far-fetching or impossible. Now, I don't know if you have ever done scrumming, for instance. This is where you have a problem and you put the problem in the middle of a circle and you just brainstorm solutions. And I think that is probably what the preparation stage is all about. So doing initial conscious work on the problem or task. It also includes considering various approaches to addressing the problem. The second phase is incubation. Incubation involves setting the problem aside simply forgetting the unimportant details and unconsciously making associations. The saying sleeping over it encapsulates the stage. So you have a problem, you started thinking about the problem, you have many alternatives that you've come up with. Now you decide, okay, I've thought about this. There are various options available here. Let me walk away from the program so that the processing in the brain at an unconscious level can continue. And then the sleeping over it, because when you come back to it, either the next day or a few hours later, insight would have been gained. The next step is illumination. Illumination is the solution that occurs to the individual after some time, involving insight with ideas breaking into consciousness because they have become coherent or of aesthetic value. Illumination is sometimes called the aha moment, the light bulb moment, which implies a sudden insight into the problem. And I like this model because the model said there's preparation, which involves really deep thinking about the problem. There's the let me sit with the problem for a while in incubation and inverted commas sleep on it. Then there's the aha, okay, so these are options that can address the problem. And then there's verification, is when the new idea is scrutinized and refined to its final form. So then you are ready to make a decision. So I think this is a very nice model, the creative process.
Natalie?
Yes?
Just a quick question. If I look at it and I just think of myself, sometimes I find myself skipping a few of these processes. Is that possible though?
It is very possible, and it is going to lead to a decision that is not the best decision for the moment. It's a decision for the moment, but it might not be a decision for the long haul. It might not be the best decision. And I think going through this, it's important to understand the heuristics we are guilty of because we don't follow the full-on process. Thanks for that comment, because we are all guilty.
Yeah, no, definitely, especially when it's that last minute. You're about to go with the red dress or the black one. So you come there, you see everybody has black on and you have the red. So
I know lastminute.com very well.
Thank you.
Developing creativity in individuals and organizations. Getting involved in the creative arts have both health and cognitive benefits for people. So I want to challenge you two ladies. Is there something creatively in your life? Do you have a creative outlet? Because as females working, you could have families, you could be parents, you could be soccer moms, rugby moms. Is there a creative outlet that you have in terms of your overall creation of creativity in your life? Creativity involves the use of multiple intelligences. The right environment must be created to unleash creative potential. And that creativity is good for well-being and cognitive development. Can you see how important it is? Creativity in the work organization may be inhibited or facilitated This is very true. In some organizations, they would actually say to you, you are not here, you are not paid to think, you are paid to do what I tell you to do. So it is important the atmosphere that is created in the workplace for creativity to flow. It can be inhibited by competition, rigid division of labor, or situations that focus on rank and task rather than on developing new approaches to problem solving. And who has the best answers for problem solving than the people who actually do the work? Not management, not the executive, but the people on the floor who actually does the work. So why not create a vehicle? Why not create a platform for people to make suggestions in terms of innovation? Most companies today have taken a very deep dive into innovation. So they have programs in the workplace to foster innovation. They have competitions in the workplace. So if you have a learning organization and you have innovation at the core, you are a successful organization. You are going to be here until the end of the fourth industrial revolution. However, if you are an organization that cramps people's innovation, you are going to die. A survey done in New Zealand revealed that creativity in organizations is mostly enhanced by scheduling time for creativity, appointing competent staff, providing space and resources so that people can pursue their ideas, open communication and information sharing, a supportive organizational structure and creative leadership, empowerment, the motivating staff, and rewarding creativity. Now, in the organization that I worked for, there was an incentive that was an offshore holiday for the staff member and their spouse. And one of the categories was innovation. So people were nominated by either their managers or their peers or their subordinates in the organization. And they had to say, for this individual that you are nominating, what innovation have they brought into the organization over the last year? And then people were judged based on the innovation that they brought within their teams. So innovation, definitely a strong contender in terms of still being here in the next couple of years as an organization. Language. Let me just check the time. We're okay. Language. People do not communicate only with others through language. They talk to themselves and daydream in language and use it as a creative process in their thinking. I've never thought of daydreaming and language in the same sentence, which is quite, they talk to themselves and daydream in language. It is true, but I've just never thought about it like that. Behaviorists propose that language is learned through reinforcement. And that is true for what we know about how children acquire language, because they hear the language of the parents or the significant others in their life, and they model the behavior and then the utterances of language. But this view of the behaviorists was refuted by Chomsky, who noted that as children acquire language, they produce sentences that they have never heard, which overrules the role of reinforcement, suggesting that language has an innate biological basis. So the jury is out in terms of, do you support the behaviorist view on language and language acquisition, or do you support the Chomsky view that language is actually a biological function, which is interesting. In all forms of discourse, language influences communication. Meaningful communication, meaningful conversations is influenced by the following four aspects. Quantity refers to the amount of information needed. Quality refers to the truth of a statement. Manner refers to clarity and the avoidance of both ambiguity and obscure statements. Relation refers to relevance. The relationship between language and thinking is also studied as an aspect of cognitive functioning. So that's a very interesting departure point in terms of cognitive functioning and the role that language plays in cognitive functioning. Let's look at memory. Memory involves retaining information that is no longer present. It functions like a time machine, going back to events in early childhood, such as one's first day in preschool. That is how we all understand memory to work. Some people have a better ability of retrieving memories than others. Stages of memory. So there's sensory memory. The sensory memory is fleeting but plays an important role. How do you get sensory memory? It is information that enters from the senses for only a few seconds or a fraction of a second even. It registers what one attends or it registers what one attends to at a given moment, such as a sound, a face, a touch, a taste, or a smell. So that's sensory memory. People are exposed to multiple sensory stimuli on a daily basis, and most of it is soon forgotten. Let's look at the short-term working memory. So you understand sensory memory. It comes to us through your five senses. It doesn't last for long. It is very fleeting. And we are exposed to these sensory stimuli on a daily basis. But it is often soon forgotten. Short-term working memory. Through selective attention, information can be transferred from the sensory memory to the short-term memory. The short-term memory holds information for about 15 to 30 seconds, which I thought was very interesting. This brief span is necessary to permit fresh information to be registered and newly received information to be stored simultaneously. Short-term memory lasts just long enough for most people to be able to repeat a 7-digit number of 7 chunks or 7 chunks of information immediately after they have been heard. The retention of information in short-term memory as well as long-term memory depends on certain control processes that the individual can use, such as rehearsal, which means repeating the stimulus, such as a name or telephone number, a few times. Just think back to a time that you had to memorize your ID number. You probably wrote it down. You probably repeated by saying it out loud a couple of times. Then you kept looking at the number, and then you turned the piece of paper over and then tried to think and write the number unseen. And that's probably the process that you use to learn your ID number or your cell number. Encoding refers to the different ways in which the information is held. Encoding can be by means of visual images, such as the facial expression of an interviewer. It can be phonological, auditory, such as the sound of the interviewer's voice, or it could be semantic, which refers to the meaning of what the interviewer says. For example, the words make you feel welcome and comfortable straight away. Now, I use encoding when I have to learn a telephone number. So my visual image is literally the keypad on a phone and the formation. So it's 1, 2, 3, top row, middle row, 4, 5, 6, third row, 7, 8, 9, and then you have the 0 at the bottom. So when I try to recall somebody's number, I literally have to go onto the keypad because there is a sequencing that I remember in what the number is. Since the storage in short-term memory lasts only seconds, the amount of information that can be held is very limited. By the process of chunking, short-term memory can hold separate pieces of information that somehow seem to be related. Chunking is an essential function of short-term memory since it enables one to deal with relatively large pieces of information. Okay, so what have we just learned about short-term memory? Short-term memory can hold information for about 15 to 30 seconds. Short-term memory lasts just long enough for you to repeat a 7-digit number. The retention in short-term memory is short. You use encoding, different ways in which the information is held. And you use chunking. By chunking things together, you also remember better. Long-term memory. Long-term memory has a seemingly limitless capacity for retaining information. The retrieval, however, ladies and gentlemen, of information from long-term memory is determined by the ways in which information is encoded in long-term memory. Encoding and retrieval are therefore, in a sense, inseparable processes. Long-term memory is divided into declarative and implicit memory. Declarative memory. What is this? Conscious recollection of experiences or facts one encountered in the past. Declarative memory is further subdivided into episodic memory and semantic memory. Episodic involves personal experiences at a particular time or place, whereas semantic memory entails knowledge that is not related to personal experiences, whereas episodic is. It refers to personal experiences at a particular time or place. So what have we learned about long-term memory? Limitless capacity. Retrieval is is important, and it is via a process of encoding. If you've done that, then the retrieval process is much easier. There is declarative memory, there is episodic and semantic memory. Prospective memory versus retrospective memory. Retrospective memory focuses on events that happened in the past, like the word says. Deliberate attention is focused on recalling past events. Prospective memory, defined as a cognitive function used for formulating plans and promises, retaining them, and recalling them at the right time or when the right cues appear. Prospective memory is divided into specific components such as monitoring, episodic prospective memory, and habitual prospective memory. So retrospective, it happened in the past. Prospective, it's all about goal settings and dreams and those kind of stuff. Promoting memory. How can we improve memory? The individual can promote their memory by the organization of information as follows. Elaborate rehearsals involves making a connection between the object or item to be remembered and something one already remembers. Or it could just be, you know, saying you're meeting a new person for the first time, you want to address the person by their first name, and you kind of mentally repeat that name a couple of times to help you remember. Practicing retrieval implies testing yourself to monitor how much is remembered. And sometimes it is difficult to work through the brain fog in terms of retrieving information. Mnemonics is a way of remembering unrelated facts or figures by organizing them according to a specific visual field known to the individual. Meta memory implies monitoring, questioning, or judging your ability to remember, which amounts to feelings of knowing and can become an autonomous way of acquiring memory and problem solving. Organizing involves breaking up into sections large amounts of material to be memorized, like you have to do for your exams. Mood state refers to memory that is promoted if the emotional content of the information that has to be remembered is coherent with the mood of the individual. Humor and exaggeration can foster memory. You always remember something that was told in a humorous way, in a jokey way. That makes an impact in terms of memory. If you're not in the right state of mind and somebody is trying to explain something to you, your long-term memory is probably not going to be optimal. I'm just looking at the time. It is 2 minutes to 7, and there's about 3 pages that we still need to go through. But if you email me, I will send you these notes tonight still. And my email is nataliejustine @gmail.com.
Hi, sorry, Natalie.
Yes.
You say Nataliejustine.
Yes.
Thanks.
Did I say 65? Yes. I'm just putting it in the chat quickly. nataliejustine65@gmail.com. Hey, Lauren, thanks for joining. I thought it was just Sandy and Kim. I didn't see you come in, but welcome. So please, ladies, if you will email me, then I will send you the rest of this chapter, because we won't have time to look at this again next week. We already are running out of time before your exam. So I just wanted to check with you guys. Would you like us to schedule more sessions just to get through more of the content before your exams?
I would appreciate it, Natalie.
Okay, so what time frame would work for you guys? Something in the evening, something during the day?
Natalie, sorry, can I just, the exam is next week, isn't it?
Is it next week?
Yes. The 2nd to the 6th of November.
I was not aware. Okay.
I don't know if it's the same for Kim and Lauren.
No, it's the same for me. It's the 2nd to the 4th. We have to complete it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is correct. We haven't received our final dates yet.
All right. So this is then our last class. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Which is really sad.
Indeed. Oh my
That
word.
reminded me.
Yeah. Okay. No, then it was lovely to meet you guys. Thank you very much for being such a great audience. And I wish you everything of the best for the exam. Email me if you want some of the notes that I did, which is really just summaries of the chapters. I am more than welcome. Happy to send that to you.
Thank you so much,
very
Natalie.
much. And if we wanted the one-on-one session with you, is that before next week, or would that only be?
It would be before next week, yes, because there's an embargo on accessing me within your exam dates.
Yes, I'm sure.
I have
Well,
been
that would be very handy, wouldn't it?
So it's a good thing that I know the dates now.
Okay.
Lauren,
Right.
could you just type your student number in the chat? Oh, you did. You did. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies, that is then it from my side. I wish you everything of the best in the exams. Everything of the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Natalie. It's
Thank you,
appreciated.
Natalie, and thank you. These have been so amazing. That it's really helped put everything in perspective. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Kim. I really appreciate that.
No, thank you. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks. Bye.
bye-bye, ladies.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy
Bye.
your
Have a nice
evening.
Thank you, you too. Bye.
Bye.
Students, Adele from UNISA. I just want to know from you, when are you writing?
Adele, they just said to me now, the week between the 2nd to the 6th of November.
2nd to 6th.
Yes.
Okay.
So this effectively was our last session.
Okay. Are you done now with 1501?
Yes, we didn't get through all the content. I basically did a chapter every week, but that's because we started late. And I just asked them now if we could schedule more sessions, and they said, well, the exam is actually next week. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, Natalie. Thank you so much.
No, it's a big pleasure. Thank you, Adele. Keep well.
You too, Natalie.
Bye.